session so that I'll know that we have a good number to start. Meanwhile, please, the rest of us, can we just be patient a bit and wait for the others? Hello, good morning, everyone. You're welcome. The rest of us that are just joining in, we are trying to get a good number to start. Please, Miss Anatu, I'm sharing my screen, but I can't see it coming up. Oh, thank you. Okay. So, all right. Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to, will I say, second to the last session that we're going to be having on this particular course. Remember, the title of the course is AI-powered chatbot without programming. I'm sure you've been having a good time, and I'm sure we have been paying good attention to our Python practical training. Python. And Python will come in handy when we finish with what we are doing as far as natural language processing is concerned. So today, the topic of our lecture today is natural language processing. Okay? Are we okay? I can see the screen, my screen sharing is up. I hope we can all hear me. I know you can't see me because where I'm streaming from, I want to increase my bandwidth. So to increase the bandwidth, I have to stop the visuals and let's just focus on the voice. All right, thank you very much. Natural language processing. How many of us remember that natural language processing is actually a field in computer science? And is a subfield of what? You know, by the time, I think before this particular module, the last two modules I took, I tried to tell you about the 5 major fields, or let us say subfields in AI, artificial intelligence, when we talk about artificial intelligence. And natural language processing is a major one. And you know that this course, this module, we are discussing chatbots. And when we say chatbot, the first thing that comes into mind is language. Language, how can you interact with the chatbot without language? And so we're going to be seeing how to process natural language. How to process natural language. All right. Just like I said, natural language processing is actually a field in computer science and a subfield in artificial intelligence. And what is the major aim? The aim is to make computers understand human language. I think I have it here. Is to make computers understand human language. Now look at it. And what does he use to make this happen? That's what we are going to be learning today. In fact, the bulk of today's lecture is going to be centered on computational linguistics. the bulk of today's lecture. We'll have to, there's no way you can talk about processing natural language without having an understanding of computational linguistics. And that is the study of how language works. You have to know the dynamics of the workings of language. And so we'll have to go this so that you have a better understanding and we can flow with natural language processing. And so by the time we start real computation, your knowledge of Python will come in handy for this. Okay. Let me just give a small advice. You know, when we start bringing up these different concepts, we talk about computation, computational analysis, and then computational linguistics. And then you're beginning to wonder, especially for those of us that, most of us that are not having this kind of background. I, for example, had to go and study some aspects of linguistics to be able to understand the computational aspect of linguistics. So it will be very good practice for you to read something about linguistics. I'm not saying I should go and take a degree in linguistics. What I'm actually saying is that try to get some kind of background knowledge about linguistics, and don't just look at it like, you know, speaking one a French, speaking this. What are the dynamics? How do the language evolve? How do they interact with the different functionalities that they possess? Learn about that. And so when you want to do computation, as far as linguistics is concerned, you have a balanced understanding. Even for computer science graduates, if you have a computer science degree or you have some form of computing background, it will do you good to get to learn this. But I have structured this module and this teaching in such a way that we will flow seamlessly. That won't be a problem. We'll be able to flow well. But like I said, it would be nice for us when we are studying and reading, because there's an examination that you will take later on. Try to learn the background of these different concepts and applications so that you have a rounded, you know, knowledge of what we are talking about. Okay, we said that the aim is to make computers understand human language. You want to understand human language. You understand your language, don't you? We all understand our languages. But this time around, we want the computer to be able to understand you, to be able to understand your language so that it can interact with you. As a chatbot or as a virtual agent, there is a way you have to structure it. There's a way you have to design it. There's a way you have to implement it for the computer now to be understanding your language and different aspects of your language. This is going to be really interesting, but let's just continue. All right. Just like we said at the later part there, I had to, you know, highlight computational linguistics, and because we are going in depth into it and understand what we really mean. Are we ready? So let's just proceed. What do we mean by computational linguistics? What is computational linguistics? It's actually interdisciplinary in nature, you know, and just like I said before, you are trying to model natural language. Okay, and you know the powerful thing about the AI chatbots that we have, what is the major thing about it? We have a situation where these chatbots can have multilingual properties. Some of the chatbots that is being created now can have multilingual properties. There are some chatbots that I use and interact with, and they tell me, do you want to interact with us in English or in French or in Spanish and so forth? And so how do we get to understand all this? That's what this field of study is centered on. Computational modeling of the natural language. So let's move. And when you are talking about that, another one is the process of finding what customers are asking and the prompting in AI to deliver accurate responses to their questions. And what is it based on? It's based on the internal, data. It's based on your internal data. And then what do we mean by the internal data? I don't think I have to tell this class that you guys are all gurus about how to train your model. And so you know what the internal data is all about. It's what you have trained your model with. And then what we say language analysis. You're using the computer to analyze language. It's such a beautiful thing when you see the way it is done. But let us go further. What are the different approaches? Let's try and see how to approach it. And I outlined some approaches there. And the first one, you use a developmental approach. Let's just read through. It said, like a child learning a language over time. The developmental approach, what does it simulate? Similar language acquisition strategy. They start to learn using monosyllables. From monosyllables, they start to combine different words together. And as they combine the different words together, it makes short phrases. And then we have good sentences. And then we begin to decipher the sentences to make sure we have meaning. And then you can understand the child. At first, it will say cup. And you're wondering, okay, what about the cup? Pointing to cup, do I want to throw the cup away? Do we need to bring the cup to you, or you want to play with the cup? It's a developmental approach. That same style is what we are discussing here. And then it says algorithms are programmed to adopt a statistical approach. And this does not involve grammar yet, just like I explained. That is the developmental approach start of it. So we are starting just like that. Okay, let's go further. What is the second approach to computational linguistics? Please, I'm trying to be as slow as possible. If there is a question you want to ask as time goes on, just type it there and I'll answer the question. But if you are okay and we are just going, if my pace is okay with you, you can just write down any gray area. Maybe at the end of the lecture, we can discuss that. And please, this time around, you guys should try and ask me questions so that I know that we are all following. The last time, everybody was silent. Okay. Structural approach. We are finished with the developmental approach, structural approach. Okay, this is becoming theoretical and runs large samples of the language through a computational linguistic model so that you are getting a better understanding of the structure of the language, Okay, now we are entering the territory of gathering large language models, like we discussed in the past when we are talking about large language models. We're trying to put a structure to it. What's the structure? We're trying to put an organized pattern to the language. And this is another approach we can use when we discuss our computational linguistics. And so we go, after we have a structure in place, next we have the production approach. I like this one particularly because it's text-based and speech-based. So when you are producing, you are not only looking at the written one, you are looking at the vocal aspect of language. And then it says the production approach uses the computational language algorithm that to produce text, and it can be broken down into these two that we just discussed. When you're talking language, you're speaking it, and the computer will pick this speech and then turn it to text. That's what you understand by speech to text. And then text-based is the written one that you can interact with the bots with or your virtual agents. Okay, so it says here, I just defined it here as written by human that is used to generate an algorithmic response. And then the other one is similar to the text-based approach. This one uses algorithms to screen speech inputs of sound waves and patterns. Very interesting, very insightful. You people have played around with it. You have had to speak with a chatbot, just like the very first demonstration we had at the end of deep learning, when you saw the Google, chatbot asking you questions about what you're drawing, why is the pattern this way, their ability to, reproduce what you're expecting and respond to your prompt and so forth. As when we are approaching the production style of computational linguistics, speech-based. And that's quite interesting. Now you know what they are trying to do. It is through this particular approach that one was able to be achieved. I hope we are following. Okay. And finally, we have the comprehension approach. I think I have that last one here. The comprehension approach. And this approach, in this particular approach, the natural language processing engine is programmed to naturally interpret written commands using simple rules. You're just to participate in the practical. Okay. Let me just finish this and I'll address that. I said with this approach, the natural language processing engine is programmed to naturally interpret written commands, and that's the comprehension approach. We have got it to the stage where they can recognize that this is text-based, can recognize that this is speech-based, and then we'll be able to interpret the written commands or the speech-to-text commands that we are working with. All right, before we proceed, let me address this question. Mr. Anas is complaining that he was unable to participate in the practical session. I am so sorry about that, because those that were on site, they had to follow through, but we are working on something right now. And I was discussing it, the technicians were working with those on site and we were trying to communicate with those online. You guys were quite few, and we were using the trial version of DocsBot. And for DocsBot, they were able to, generate responses from the chatbot. But even those on site requested for what we are working on right now, and that is a step-by-step process of how to run this practical. And so that's what we are going to do. We thought it was an assumption by us that as we give you the guidelines of what to do verbally, you just follow through with your system. We are assuming that you have maybe access to a computer system wherever you are online, of course, and you'll be able to, just work with that. But from what we gathered, what we are trying to work on, I've already discussed with the technical aid, those that are helping out with the practicals. I've already given them the instructions on what to do, and they are ready for us. We're actually integrating our chatbot to our social media platform. So that integration process, we're going to outline the process and put it up, because I remember some people were like, they cannot see my screen, and there was nothing on the screen. I was just talking. I wanted them to follow my instructions, but now I'll actually put something on the screen or put a detailed guideline that you follow to be able to run the practical. It's just like I told them, it's like teaching engineering online. Please bear with us. Maybe subsequently we'll be able to improve on our approach. I'm sure the organizers, we work something out that works for everyone. I don't know if that is okay, Mr. Anas. Okay, so that is it for the practical. So I think the next practical, I believe, will be better than the last one. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's just recap, and so we can just flow. We're talking about the approaches to computational linguistics. We talked about the developmental approach, going step by step, picking the language bit by bit, and then trying to make sense of it. The second one was the structural approach, and then we looked at the production approach, and now we finally looked at the comprehension approach. And just like we have been saying, how do you apply this in real world? I'm sure a lot of you are already thinking, what is my own with this computational linguistics? I mean, I thought we were supposed to be talking about chatbots. Here it comes. Chatbots, that's the number one I have there. Computational linguistics in real world setting. I hope you know that, just like I told you when, and we discussed that, during the introduction to the course and so many other aspects of the course that we have been enjoying so far. We made you to understand, I particularly made you to understand that the digital world is as real as the physical world in today's world. So if you are still seeing the digital world as something abstract, you better just come back to what I would say reality. Because when we say computational linguistics in the real world, we are talking about real digital world that is interacting with the physical world. And so here it is, the chatbots. I hope you know that almost every company that, actually does anything online, which is almost all, they have live chats that are available. In those days, you can just have an email to interact with them and make your inquiries or complaints or whatever you want to do. You can make a phone call. Now the phone calls are being automated. And then you have chats that would interact with you like they are humans. And remember in our last class, we started the class by trying to understand that if we say, if we look at an interaction online, we want to try and know whether we are talking to a human or a chatbot. And we had a beautiful conversation on that, and we got to understand that the chatbots are sounding more and more like humans. And that's because of this particular concept that we are trying to learn, computational linguistics, natural language processing. Companies are now having live chats alongside their phones, their emails, text messages, and so forth. Another application of computational linguistics in real world is machine translation. I wrote here using AI to translate from one language to another. A good example is your Google Translate. That's one everybody knows. Your Google Translate. And there are so many others that can translate, but you all know Google Translate. But I remember there was some in school in those days. There were some Chinese people that enrolled into the school, and they wanted to be able to interact. So we met in the computer hub where we were trying to fix our systems and all that during the registration process and so forth and so forth. And I know that because the school is over 500 years old, and these Asian people love schools like that. They love, schools that have credibility and a name for years. And there was something very interesting they were doing. They just whip up Google Translate. And the first thing they were doing was they were speaking Chinese. They did not understand English. And so when they were trying to make their inquiries, they will talk to Google Translate and show it to the IT people. The IT people will read and talk, and then, They were just going forth with Google Translate. It was so interesting. They were new and they had not learned how to at least interact with English yet, but they were actually interacting using machine translation. At that time, I didn't know anything about, because I was just coming in to study and I was learning about AI. And it is now I've come to realize that, oh, wow, this was what they were really doing. Just like I said, a very good example is your Google Translate. And what is powering that is actually computational linguistics. By the way, for some of you that are really interested in AI, of course, that's why you are in this course. Do you realize that there are some people that this is just their area of specialization? Some of them are expert computational linguists. Some of them have a background in linguistics, and they just focus in this area of specialization. So when it comes to maybe like OpenAI, there is a hub of computational linguistics that handle this aspect of AI and natural language processing. They are experts in that area. They can help you analyze language with their expertise. And when you talk of Google Translate, they are experts in that department. You can decide to have a career in that aspect. If you are, I'm talking about some of our students that are not having a background of computer science. Maybe you have a background in languages. You can focus on this area and become a star in this area. There's a whole world of opportunities here, and it is in high demand now. Remember, I don't know if most of you remember what we said. We said that there is the fear that many people will lose their jobs because of AI. But who is going to be the computational linguist? Who is going to be analyzing language, natural language? Those people that are ready, those people that are taking this kind of course, those people that understand what we are doing right now. So this is an area that you might just want to look into, something like that. So let's go on. Let's go on. All right. Another aspect of the application of computational linguistics in real world, the real digital world, which is actually the real world now, is creating knowledge from unstructured and structured text. I hope you remember structured and unstructured that we discussed before. We won't be going into that. So extracting knowledge. You're creating the knowledge and then extracting it. That's what we termed knowledge extraction. And so how are you doing that? You're using computational linguistics to be able to extract knowledge from the text. It could be structured or unstructured. That's fine. Yeah, Samuel. Those that have a background in linguistics can decide to take a special course in computational linguistics. Do you know why they will fare better? Remember, if you were here at the beginning of the module when we started talking, we said computational linguistics is multidisciplinary in nature. So it's multidisciplinary in nature. Somebody here is asking that are people who have background in linguistics, of course. In fact, it's not as if computer science people cannot just go and pick one or two and be able to understand it. But those that have a background in linguistics have an edge. And so, but when they take a course or, a kind of maybe diploma or a study on computational linguistics, you are in. And then you can analyze language and be a very key player when it comes to processing natural language. That's natural language processing. That's an aspect of natural language processing that is actually needed. It's becoming hot now, for your information. There are so many people overseas, I don't know, around here. I know that there's something I read about when I was reading AI news, that in Kenya, South Africa, and so parts of Africa, these companies like OpenAI, Google, and they outsource their need for those that can analyze data for them to companies, and these companies come to Africa because there's cheap labor here, and then they use them to do this work. But if you are a star in this area, you can work directly with these big bodies that are creating chatbots and so forth, and virtual agents, and then you work in that particular area. There's something to think about. Okay, so remember, we are actually talking about computational linguistics in the real world. And the first one we talked about are chatbots. We talked about machine translation. And next, we talked about knowledge extraction. Here we are looking at when we are extracting knowledge, or we are creating knowledge from the language that is spread out before us, both structured and unstructured. All of them, we put them together and create. We can even try to work on the unstructured data to make it structured and continue and be able to extract knowledge from it. When talking about this knowledge extraction, just stay with me. When we get to a certain aspect, you will see how this knowledge, the technique that is used to extract this knowledge, and what kind of knowledge is extracted in this process. Okay? All right. So the next one here, we talked about the interface. Of course, you need an interface to be able to communicate with humans. And using speech or using text, of course, you need an interface. And those of us that have been hands-on with the practicals, you can see the beautiful interfaces that we have. And then you are able to communicate with your system. And by the time you do the integration by Thursday, hopefully, we'll see how beautiful the interface can be. And you can even tweak your interface, especially AI-powered chatbots. You can tweak your interface to suit your company, or the company logo, or the company style or color scheme. Interface, natural language interface. They allow humans to interact with our devices, operating system, using spoken words or actually text. I should have added that. And of course, we always, in this class, we use the generic example that is common to everybody. Siri, Alexa, you have a feel of how they work, actually. Okay. Now, next point. Another application of computational analysis and linguistics in the real world is sentiment analysis. This is a good one. Sentiment analysis, identifying or identification of emotional tone in text or spoken language. Do you not wonder when you are interacting with a virtual agent, or you are interacting with a chatbot, and then you say something like, I'm having a bad day today, the rain is heavy and the light is out. There are some things I need to accomplish and I've not been able to accomplish it. And the chatbot replies and says something like, oh, I'm sorry about that. Don't worry, today will be nice. And you wonder, does this chatbot feel? No, they don't. They don't have feelings or empathy whatsoever. But because they can analyze language, analyze the sentiment in language, the emotional tone, by the time you are looking at the tone of the language or the tone in the text, because of the way it was trained, that's what we mean by sentiment analysis. And you do that in computational linguistics. And then from that tone, they will be able to provide some kind of encouragement to suit your emotions. That's another very powerful aspect. But most times, some people just, if it is so good, some of us forget that we are interacting with a machine. You shouldn't lose sight of that anyway. Anyway, that's by the way. So, in that case, we have seen the major driving force for natural language processing, which is computational linguistics. And there is the part that computational linguistics focuses on, and there is also the part that natural language focuses on, and they come and marry each other and they know what they are doing. So let us look at that focus. First of all, let's look at computational linguistics focus. What does it focus on? Please stay with me. Here we have, okay, before I look at the focus, I want us to just ponder over what we have been talking about. Try in your mind, I want you to cast your mind back on most of the interactions that you've had with systems and see how most of the concepts that we have discussed so far come into play. I'll just give you like 5 minutes to do that before we look at the focus. For those of us that are just joining in, you're welcome. So far, we have been talking about this topic for today is actually natural language processing. And we are looking at an aspect of natural language processing that powers natural language processing, and that is computational linguistics. And that's what we have been talking about. So before the end of today's lecture, hopefully we'll be able to take some questions, and also we will be able to introduce some techniques that we use in natural language processing powered by computational linguistics. And so just ponder over your interactions you've had in the past with chatbots, and just try, and for those of us that are on site, let us try and cast our mind back on some of the practical sessions that we had. I know they were short, but at least there's some insight into it, and you have an idea of how these chatbots can help, and see how computational linguistics that we've been discussing since come into play here. Just give us some time, okay, before I continue my talk. And write your questions down. So let's see what we are focusing on here. Okay, let's see what we are focusing on here when we talk about computational linguistics focus. Number one, the system or concept that machines can be computed to understand, learn, or output languages. You see, that's our number one focus as far as computational linguistics is concerned. The next focus, remember, understand, learn, as training is going on there. And then output languages. So when you are doing computational linguistics, this is your focus. This is what you are doing, basically. That's what we mean. This is exactly what you're doing. Next, analysis and comprehension of spoken language. Don't you find that really powerful? A machine beginning to comprehend spoken language. That's why I can talk to you and understand you. Remember, we're talking about AI here, AI-powered virtual agents and chatbots. And then it begins to mine your text. Just like you have data mining, computational linguistic mines text. Even if it is speech, it's translated to text and it mines it and begin to analyze it and decipher it and put it in different categories. You will see that technique when we start talking about machine language techniques. Extract information, which means you can put 1 and 2 together or combine different data and begin to bring information from it to inform your chatbot. And then finally there, we have machine translation, just like we discussed earlier. So against this computational linguistics, we said it is the center of when we are processing language. Okay, when we are processing natural language, we are focusing on computational linguistics, helping us to process language. Now, in natural language processing itself, what is its major focus? Application. You can see here, we said is the application of processing language that enables a computer to understand human language as it is written or as it is spoken. Somebody is saying, what's the question you asked again? Honestly, I don't know. I've been talking since. Which question? What's the question you asked again? Oh, let's just continue. I don't think, I'm just explaining the different focus right now. Okay. So I was just talking about your question about background on computational, linguistics, a background in linguistics. I was just saying that it will give you an edge if you want to toe the line of, having a kind of specialization in computational linguistics. I think that was what I was saying. I can't remember asking any other question. Class, did I ask any specific question? Somebody is trying to find out which question I asked. So can we continue? Okay, while one is actually focusing on text mining, is focusing on information extraction and machine translation, that's talking about computational linguistics, the other one, what is working for, is concerned about the application. And that is where we are going into. Let us see how this application will play out for us as we study natural language processing. Okay, now look at it. Let us have a background. Let us have a history of natural language processing, just a small history of it. We are saying here that the models were hand-coded and rule-based. When we talk about rule-based or hand-coded, are we remembering our rule-based chatbots and AI-powered chatbot? We talked about that. Or we say hand-coded, pencil and paper, and following some laid down set of rules to be able to create models in natural language processing. And you can see clearly how stereotypical the responses or the interactions are when we were dealing with the early chatbots that we had. And that was how we started. And when we say that it does not account for nuances, maybe like different sentences coming up, different other aspects of sentence or the language coming up. It does not account for that. And for example, when you talk of sarcasm, idioms, metaphors, humans, they learn that through experience. They learn that through having a memory. And then they are able to understand that this person is being sarcastic when you are talking to me, or somebody is complimenting you and you know that it's not compliments, the person is actually insulting you. You learn that through experience. When we talk during the early times, we were not able to decipher that. It was just rule-based, hand-coded, and then you have some set of rules, just straightforward, very simple and very ambiguous or on not sophisticated, let me use that word. And then in order for a machine to be successful in parsing language, it must first be programmed to differentiate these different concepts. When you say it's parsing, you have to be able to differentiate these different concepts that we have been discussing. And but these early developments were followed by statistical natural language processing, which uses probability to assign the likelihood of certain meanings or different parts of speech, parts of text. That was what was happening then. And before you are able to do something more sophisticated, more complicated, like the AI ones we are seeing now, you have to be able to follow statistical natural language processing. That's talking about the early ones. Now, the modern systems, they use deep learning models. And with deep learning, the last module, on deep learning, you can see that there are different layers upon layers of, inputs that can help you to understand what they are parsing. And they use complex programming and probability to generate human-like responses, complex programming. And so you can see that they learn, the ability to learn from the data that they get, and then begin to produce second data, third data, and so forth, begin to produce new data. I hope you remember our deep learning architectures and the different kinds of deep learning architectures coming from our deep learning modules. Our modern natural language processing systems put all that into play. They bring it to the fore and then they use that. A typical example is what we are having now and we're enjoying ChatGPT. GPT-3, we have GPT-4, and then we're evolving with time. And then that's how we are here. That's how we have come. And so you can see just a nutshell about the history, a brief history of the evolution of natural language processing. So let's also look at the techniques for language processing. I promised you from the beginning that when you see the techniques that it uses combined with computational linguistics, you can see how language can be processed to help you and your chatbot to interact like you are interacting with humans. It's fluid, it's smooth, and it's enjoyable. And so you have a very good customer experience if you are a business. Are we good? Are we ready? So let's go to the next slide. It says natural language techniques for language, NLP techniques for language processing. What are the techniques that you employ when you are processing language? Sometimes I just wonder where we are going to. It's just getting more and more complex. It's getting more and more interesting. Do you people realize that at all? Or is it me that is just getting blown away and excited about this whole thing? What is your take on this evolution of technology as far as deep learning and natural language processing is concerned? Talk to me. What do you think? Yeah, Sunday we're actually getting deeper. I don't know. We that is why at the collaborative center. Yes, Sunday, it's true. We are gradually changing our mindset from what we know in this new world. We are in a new world, and thank God, those of you that are on this course and many people that are, like reading about these different new concepts, you are taking this seriously. Those that are not taking it seriously, we just wake up one morning and discover that the train have moved. The flight, they've missed the flight. And they want to try and book another one that is late. And you know the cost of trying to rebook a flight. Yes, we are just going deeper. Just like I wanted to say, at the Collaborator Center for Artificial Intelligence, one of the major things that we are trying to bring to fore. In fact, there's another conference coming up in Lagos that we are trying to train some education stakeholders. We're trying to make them understand the responsible use of AI. The way AI is going, beginning to process language. Come on. If there is no control and you do not know how to use it responsibly, abuse, according to what people say, abuse galore. We have to know what we are doing, and we have to enjoy this new technology at the same time, use with caution and knowledge. Now, if somebody like Mr. Anas, Ms. Chioma, Sunday, when you are talking to other people and you are explaining to them what we are doing, you are talking from an informed standpoint. And this is what everybody should know. That language is being processed, whatever you are doing. Victor, is mind-blowing. Honestly, in fact, I was reading a tech gist. I was just discussing with a relative, and we're just talking about tech news, tech gist. He subscribes to this tech platform, and every single day new things are coming up, and they're like, my God, we have not recovered from the last one, and there are new ones that are coming up. It's actually taking over the world, Chioma. Yes, is actually taking over every of our space. It's supposed to be a good thing, Technology is good, the internet is good, but then there has to be control. There has to be control. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Natural language processing, it has a wide range of techniques that is enabling, is giving enablement to the computer to understand human language. It's understanding human language. And the task that is performing is what we're going to be looking at. I think I was able to outline 10. I grouped them in 10. You'll see that some of them are similar to the other bits, there are different aspects. There are different things that they do that makes them to be in that particular category. And so the number one there, like you can see from my slide, is text processing and pre-processing. There's pre-processing. Let's take them one after the other. When you are dividing text into smaller units, such as words and sentences, remember the developmental approach we talked about when we talked about computational linguistics, and we used that analogy of a child trying to learn a language, trying to understand the words first, and trying to have phrases, put one and two together, and make sentences that are sensible for the parents to understand, or whoever is training the child, the guardian. Is something similar to what we are saying. Is tokenization. That's the term that is used for it. This is a way of, this is actually a pre-processing approach. Is dividing the text into smaller units. That's what the computer is doing. Anyway, the next part. Okay. Oh, can they attend? Oh, no. It's not online. It's actually physical. Are you in Lagos? you can dip in, you can come in if you are an educational stakeholder, you are in any form of education aspects, you can join. I think it's held in, let me get it right. We are going to be, that's on the 19th. Let's see. On the 19th is going to take place. You can come over. If you can look for me. You can look for me. Hopefully, I'll have the time to, maybe see you. You can tell the people on the decks there. It's, I think, Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I'll be speaking there, but if you tell them you are my student, you are on this AI course, please, I'll tell them to let you in. Is that okay? We want as many education stakeholders to be present so that we can train as many people as possible. By the way, it's highly subsidized. That's why you can come in free. Otherwise, you have to pay. Okay, it's actually $100, but it's being sponsored. Okay, so as many of those that are in one form of education or not, you show evidence that you are an educationist or you are, working in an education setting, a university, a school, please come over and you will most likely gain access. All right, so let's proceed. The second point there is stemming and lemmatization. This is reducing words to their base or root form. Okay? Let me use the first word to illustrate this point: tokenization. Well, it will break it down at this stage. Stemming and lemmatization. At this stage, it will reduce it to token, the root word token, so that there will be clarity and understanding before it starts to progress to its adjective version, the adverb of it, the plural of it, the verb of it, or whatever. Do you get my point? I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm trying to break it down. It's just like when you talk of the modularity, it now goes down to the root word to understand that it has to be in modules. And from understanding that it has to be in modules, you will now know that the approach to this design is modular in faction, so that you can address it module by module. Do you get it? That's what this stage will do. And this is being computed. There are algorithms that run this particular process. This is a major technique that it should use. And so the next one there, under text processing and pre-processing, is what I termed there as stop word remover, removing common words like this and the is, they try to remove all these words and go to the root words, try to understand the basics, so that there will be clarity. And any word that does not carry any significant meaning, you try to remove them. You see the way they are, will I use the word piecing the language or the text to get to the understanding of the individual parts of it. And then text normalization, standardizing text, including case normalization, removing punctuation. Case normalization now, uppercase, lowercase, that's capital letters, small letters, so forth and so forth. They are trying to understand all that. And then removing punctuations and correcting spelling errors. This is text normalization. It's almost like cleaning. It's like cleaning the data. Remember, when removing all those parts of it that is not supposed to be there. But this one is actually trying to normalize it. That's what we mean by normalizing it. What we are doing is to spread all our cards on the table so that there is clarity and there's understanding. That's what we are trying to do here. That's the first point there. Text processing and pre-processing. Let's go to the next one. But before we go to the next one, let me quickly answer Samuel. Mr. Samuel, you said, where is the location? I think I said it earlier. I'm afraid you didn't get it. It is actually the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry Conference and Exhibition Center. Okay. Okay, Mr. Odia, there's no problem at all. My practice is this. Before I give you your assessment, I upload all my slides for you. Okay. It's just that, don't worry, I'll try and find time to do that. We are running up and down, having one or two, workshops, conferences. That's what the center does. So when I take this class, I quickly take the class and go back and, run up and down for all those functions. That's not supposed to be an excuse though, but don't worry, you will get the slides. Okay. But I hope you are following so far. All right, so let's look at number 2. Number 2 is our syntax and parsing. Syntax and parsing. This time around, we are looking at the parts of speech tagging. Parts of speech is noun, verb, adjective. Those are the examples I put there. You try to assign parts of speech. The computing or the computational aspects of natural language processing uses this technique, and this is how it does it. And then the second one, it says dependency parsing, analyzing the grammatical structure of a sentence to identify the relationship. Now we are going deeper. We're trying to understand the relationship between the different grammatical structure of a sentence. And then we'll now go further to break it down, to break down the sentence into constituent parts or phrases. Do you see how we are trying to analyze in-betweens of a text or a language? We are trying to analyze the in-betweens. And when we say the syntax, when we say syntax of a language, what do we really mean? We're actually talking about the structure of the language. When we say semantics, we're actually talking about the meaning of the language. So this time around, we're trying to, we're doing parts of speech tagging, we're doing dependency tagging, constituency tagging. That's breaking down the sentence into constituents, different constituent parts, and into different phrases. And of course, we know the phrases we are talking about in English: noun phrases, verb phrases, and so forth and so forth. All right, I hope that is clear. Number 3, semantic analysis, the semantic analysis. And the first one there is identifying and classifying entities in text. When we say entities, such as names of people, organizations, locations, dates, all these different entities, we're trying to recognize them. That's why we called it the named entity recognition or recognition, sorry. And then we have determining which meaning of a word. You remember what I just said? We're trying to analyze the syntax first, and now we are analyzing the semantics. Do you get it? And so how do you analyze? The first one, we classify it into different entities. Next, we are trying to understand the meaning in the word that is used. All right. We're trying to understand the meaning of the word that is used. And then for the semantic analysis, we are also trying to identify the different words that refer to the same entity in the text. Do you get it? So this is it. This is what we are trying to achieve when we are doing semantic analysis. So what we are trying to find out is the meaning behind the text. And this is how we find the meaning behind the text using these different approaches. And then number 4, let us extract information. Remember what we said. We are extracting information. Remember what we said earlier when we talked about the focus of our computational linguistics, and then the focus when we are dealing with our natural language processing. And of course, they work hand in hand. Entity extraction. That's where identify specific entities, just like we said. Look at identifying and classifying entities in text, such as the names of people, the organizations, the location, the date, the different entities. Now, when we are extracting information from that, we are identifying them and looking at their relationship within the text. The relationship between this person and this organization. This person works in this organization as what? And what are the functions? Do you get it? So you can see a chatbot relating with you and we're saying, Mr. Secretary. Really? It can be this powerful. And so you are extracting information. And then the second one says relation extraction. Just like I explained, trying to understand the relationship between these different entities. Okay, next, let's look at another technique we can use for the processing of natural language. And please don't feel like, oh my God, there's so much to do on this level. Remember, it's being computed. And also remember that when you are working this field, have a lot of people that are specialized in different areas. When we talk about these techniques, there might just be a department that have assigned some group of people to analyze the language, focusing on text classification, just text classification. I told you earlier that most of these big organizations, they outsource these jobs to different outsourcing bodies, and they employ data analysts. And these data analysts come and analyze the data using these different techniques. And for each technique, there are some people that are assigned to do that. And so you see that there is usually a team that is working together to make this a reality. And so don't feel like, oh, there's so much to do at once. No. There are different people that are working together. And then there's not integration, which is the final aspect. In fact, that's going to be the final part of this course, this module, integration. In our last, next week we're having the last practical. No, this week, yes, this week, not next week. Next week we are having, by Monday next week, we're having the last lecture for this module. And on Thursday, we're having the last practical. And the last practical is talking about integration, where we now integrate all the different aspects to make it a whole that's, can address our specific need. Are we okay with that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hajara, that's true. Just like the MTN. MTN customer service. How does that work for you, actually? I think they have improved. The MTN customer service. How many of us have MTN? Yeah, and their customer service. Are you being sarcastic right now, or does it work well for you? The customer service is so kind of like lengthy. Well, I want to believe that they are doing better now. Most of them, they are doing better now. Anyway, that's why you are studying. Yeah, that's why you are studying this module. So maybe you change things for them. You change the narrative. But their technology is worth exploring. It's actually very good, actually. All things being equal. Okay. Now, the next, number 5, says text classification. Sentiment analysis. Like we said before, you're analyzing sentiment. And you know what sentiment is? Emotional tone, your mood. It can detect your mood using different parameters, whether it is positive, negative, or just neutral. and be able to reply to you based on your sentiment. Just imagine that. And then we have, it can also identify topics or themes within a large collection of documents, what is termed as topic modeling. And the beautiful one I find very useful and interesting, the ability for it to classify spam messages, spam text, the ability for it to classify that. And that comes under text classification. And that's a very good one. So we have sentiment analysis, topic modeling, and spam detection, number 5. So let's go to number 6, language generation. After doing all that, after we have gone from, where did we start from? We looked at text processing and pre-processing, kind of like preparing the text, tokenization, text normalization, removing all those punctuation and ambiguity in the text. We looked at syntax analysis, parsing the syntax, trying to look at the structure of language. And we went further to look at the meaning behind the language, trying to analyze the meaning. When we talked about our semantic analysis, we try to extract our information. Number 5, we just talked about classification of the text, semantic sentiment analysis. That's looking at your mood, looking at your emotions coming into play there, and then modeling the different topics, and then detecting spam. After doing all that, we start to generate our language, which is number 6. And machine translation, translating text from one language to another. You're translating the text from one language to another, especially in the case of a multilingual chatbot. And then the next one, text summarization. Giving summary is easy. And then text generation, generating a coherent and contextually relevant text. I like this later part when we talk about contextually relevant text. So which means it can, from all this analysis and these processes, by the time we process the language using all the 5 steps that we have talked about earlier, you can see that it can capture the context. There are different contexts in just a single sentence. Who can just give me an example of just one sentence that can be relaying different contexts? Oh, who can just say? No, of course. Of course. Oh my goodness. That's exactly what I've been saying. It can study your mood. It can study your mood depending when it captures the text, and the algorithm would tell it. As, for example, in speech recognition, the pitch of your speech, an AI algorithm can detect the speech and the pitch in your speech. And it has been programmed that if the pitch is high, there's a certain kind of, I don't know if you're getting my explanation now. I'm just giving a simple example. The rest of us, are we following? Because Hajara is asking that, you mean it can study human mood? Of course, it can study your mood. It can study the pitch of your voice. Your pitch can be high, maybe you're happy, or your pitch can be angry, and it records it and replies you that what has upset you today. And you wonder, oh my God, how did he know? It is studying the pitch of your voice, in your voice. Yes, that's language. I remember from the beginning, we talked about, the text analysis and the speech analysis. It does all that. Is that interesting? Yes, it can. It can do that. All right. Nice. So look at this last one. When I said text generation, I was saying that, do we realize that just one sentence can be spoken or written, but is in different context? That's why the third one says text generation. That's generating coherent and contextually relevant text. So I can relate with you understanding the what they call it, the context in which you are saying that sentence. Okay, let me give a typical example. I hope it captures it well. This bread is old. If I say this bread, I see, maybe I bought a bread and I looked at the label, I looked at the packaging, and I use a sentence, a text, and I write, this bread is old. Do you realize that for a well-trained AI chatbot that has, analysis of the text that have been building up so far, I might just be saying that the bread is old in the context of when it was created, when it first came out. Maybe they started selling it in the early 2000s. It is in that context I'm talking about. Or I could be talking about the bread in the context of its freshness. When I say it's old, maybe the bread is going stale. Do you understand those two contexts? And when I relate with or have a conversation with my chatbot based on that sentence, it will relate with me without any lapses in the context I'm talking about, if we're already having a conversation. Do you realize that? That is what we mean by this text generation, generating coherent and contextually relevant text. If what I mean is the age of the bread as it relates to the time it started circulating in the market, it will relate to me based on that. If what I mean, if it's in the context of the shelf life, it will relate to me in that context. Do you realize that? That's so powerful. And that's really very beautiful when we look at this particular technique in discussing natural language processing. All right, let's go to the next one. That's number 7. We have speech processing. That's another technique that can be used in natural language processing, converting spoken language into text. Converting spoken language into text. Of course, we have extensively talked about that. And then we also have text to speech, speech to text, text to speech, converting written text to spoken language. Okay? That's why it can converse with you with voice and you understand. Next, we have question answering, and then you're finding and returning the most relevant text passage in response to a particular query, which is actually mostly what we do, retrieval-based question answering, and then we have generative question answering. When we are talking about generative AI, we are actually generating an answer based on the information that is available in our text corpus and our text, store. So this is another technique that is used in natural language processing. And so second to the last, we have our dialogue systems. What do we mean by our dialogue systems? That's something that even you can explain in this class. We're looking at our chatbots or our virtual assistants, Alexa, Siri, and so forth, enabling systems to engage in conversations with users, providing responses and performing tasks based on the user input. Of course, Samuel. I think you want to be on this level. Trust me. You don't want to be on the last season or the last level, right? That's why you are taking this course. Yeah. We're on the right track. Okay. And then finally, some of you will say, Kai, this natural language processing sharp. Number 10, technique. Sentiment and emotion analysis. Just like one of us wondered recently, emotion detection, identifying and categorizing emotions that are expressed in text or even speech that are expressed in text and speech, and opinion mining. Just imagine this, analyzing opinions or reviews to understand public sentiment towards products, services, and topics. Because of this particular technique, it can now give advice. It can give recommendations based on informed data. Do you get it? So that's what we're talking about, opinion mining. This is a very powerful technique that most companies and organizations are using to be able to get a feel of what the public thinks about their product, what their staff think about their services and their products. And they are able to converse with us as virtual agents or chatbots in a more productive manner. Yes, and that brings us to the end of this module. All right, this is the time you ask me questions. Can we just run through what we have done so far? Or you are okay? If you're okay, that's fine. Just let me know, and then we'll call it a day. And then I'll just give you a sneak peek into what to expect in the practicals and also for the last module for this particular, the last lecture for this particular module. Okay, class, let's just have a recap and then we can call it a day. Thank you for good listening. Thank you for the interaction. I kind of like this class, very expressive. We're able to enjoy some parts of the technological advancement that we have been seeing recently and so far. So it has been natural language processing. We talked about what natural language processing is to us, and the whole aim is to try to understand human language. That's what we are trying to do. And one of the major tools we use to achieve that is computational linguistics. We talked about computational linguistics and how it can model natural language and how it actually analyzes natural language. We looked at the different approaches to computational linguistics, and we looked at its application in real world. And because of this course, we have to bring it up because it's chatbot, AI-powered chatbot without programming, which that we are, this module is about. And so we have to look at it in that light. And we'll try to see the focus of our computational linguistics, text mining, information extraction, understanding language as trying to compute, to understand, to learn, and to output languages, and finally, machine translation, especially for multilingual scenarios. And so we looked at what we are focusing on as far as our natural language is concerned. And so we now went into, we talked a little bit about the history of natural language processing, how it was in the early stages and what we are experiencing now. And we went further to look at all the different techniques that we could, use, syntax parsing, pre-processing of the text. We looked at semantic analysis, how to extract information, classifying of text, how to generate language, speech, parsing. Of course, we talked a lot about that. And then answering questions, looked at our dialogue system, and finally, sentiment and emotion analysis. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Sunday. And Ms. Hajara, I know, like I said earlier, I explained to the class earlier that we understand, just like I told them before, I said, thank you, Ms. Chioma. What I was just trying to explain to the class that we had feedback. Don't feel that because you are online, you are, like disadvantaged or anything of that sort. No, even on site, we were advised that we should try to outline the processes. I didn't do that in the last class. I just talked. And for the people on site, the technologists that were in the lab, I just gave directives, saw 1 or 2 outputs, and then I left it to the technologist and the technical staff to help out. And they were able to have, some kind of output of some sort from the feedback I got. But what they complained about was that they did not have a step-by-step guide that they could follow. I was just saying it and I did not outline it. But for the next practical, we'll try our best to outline the steps, the integration step, and hopefully you'll be able to follow even if you are engaging online. So whichever computer device you are using, you just follow the step-by-step process and then you'll be on the same page. But we are actually we are actually hoping that after the practicals, you will find personal time, alone time, or group time to practice more, do more. You can't do everything in the class. The time is too limited. You can do more. And those of you that have means or you are working in places where you can actually purchase the software, because what we use is actually the trial version and it has limited functionalities, but we're able to, get the concept across to our students. But, that's what I particularly use. I use DocsBot. And there's another one we can use, which is BotSonic, and then we use Dialogflow, which is actually, you can sign on to it with your Google account, but if you want more, you have to subscribe. Hopefully you'll be able to do that on your own in your spare time and practice some more. But as on our own part, we are working on outlining the steps and then we'll have to project it for everybody to follow. Yes, we'll do that. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you. Bye-bye.